Do you have anything from Hong Kong's tradition? That's something I would love to explore in the future. I suppose like, I'm into identity politics now. Like I really want to explore more from my native culture. Part of that rests with the Cantonese language, and in fact, my initial research proposal hinged on music theory that was closely tied to the Cantonese language. I'm not going to go into detail because I didn't do it. It was a bit too theory heavy, so I didn't end up doing it. But I'd love to explore that eventually. And the other aspect is whether I can find like cultural elements that I like tunes that I like and resonate with. But the thing is, like, I think the way I grew up is we didn't really have a lot of folk music, unlike certain parts of the world, let's say parts of Europe. I think we have like nursery rhymes, no nursery rhymes, what's the word? Lullabies, and tunes like that. We have like the New Year music, but that's like kind of, it's not considered folk in a way because it has been adapted into the modern Chinese music tradition. But like, for example, Cantonese opera is something that increasingly fascinates me, but is now very distant, geographically speaking. It was very distant culturally speaking because most Hong Kong people don't really get involved with Cantonese opera, but now it is geographically distant as well. So it's not something that I can easily look into, and it's also not something that I inherently resonate with because I didn't grow up with it. But Cantonese music, I find that interesting. But I think, in a way, I do think that Canto pop could be like a new stratum. What's the word? Strata of folk music. It's not old like what you would expect from like folk traditions, but in a way, the position that it occupies in people's upbringing and in the cultural awareness is kind of like a folk tradition. So there are some certain like cantopop songs from the olden times that have that position. But I don't know. Maybe some people will know that better than I do. I have a colleague who is also from Hong Kong but based in Taiwan, who did a PhD with me. So they used kind of like these little, I guess, yeah, in this case, the nursery rhymes in their piece, but in a more like a spoken capacity. So that's quite different from what I'd be thinking. I don't know. I think another question is how to do that without being cringe. Because nowadays, like back in Chopin's days, let's say, like in the 1800s, it was the era of romanticism. People were romanticizing about, their nation, the folk traditions. Back then, it was cool to use like folk music in your compositions. But now it's really hard to do it without being cringe. Because people are like, oh, boo, you're just using that. Yeah, duh, I know what you're doing. Or on the other end of things, it could be like very patriotic. Like, oh, I use it because I really love my nation and so on. But it's not easy to do it in a subtle way that is like well integrated, I suppose. So that's why I came up with the idea of like integrating that into my theory. But again, I didn't do it. There's a disgusting lack of goblin music in the world. What's a goblin music? What do you mean? I feel like there are rhythms and stuff that we'd use every day that aren't necessarily from anything. Like the rhythms we use when knocking on a door. Yeah, that's true. Like something like that. Yeah. I think they ultimately came from somewhere. But the origin has been lost. I think it depends on which direction you take, because Vesna combined modern music with ancient Czech mythology. Oh, hold on. Are you talking about the musical content, or is it like the words? Because that's a huge thing. I guess also like it's your goal, it's your aesthetic. If your whole thing is, well, you're going to use like folk traditions, then it makes sense. If people buy into your kind of music, then yeah. I guess we just have some sort of, it's the 21st century. We cringe at our own cultures. Like it's like the Scottish cringe people talk about. Scottish people hear Scots and they're like, oh, that's so cringe. But that's because they're taught to hate the culture or something like that. Could be something like that along those lines. But it's I guess I suppose that it's the aesthetic that you work in, mainly in the lyrics. A convergent phenomena, you might say. Yeah, could be. What about jazz? No, jazz itself, I think jazz is like the American equivalent of folk music. I mean, jazz has a lot of, I can't claim to be an expert on that, obviously, but like jazz has a lot of draws a lot on like the African American musical traditions, which, you know, it goes back to all the like the spirituals and those things. And, you know, when they were slaves, they had their own music. So in a sense, jazz is like the modern, like a century ago, but like the relatively modernized rendition of that folk tradition. So, and it is also uniquely American. It came from that part of the world, right? Even though it's been adopted by other parts of the world. So Cantonese jazz, that would necessarily be a combination of that folk tradition and then whatever we do. But I don't know. I don't know it very well. I know one Hong Konger who plays jazz, and she's in Amsterdam right now, if you've seen the Dutch video. Oh, hello, Colin Dane. Mainly lyrics, though they do use folk instruments. I recently looked into a friend's old iPod, and they had like Fawn on it. It's like a folk rock band that I was briefly into many moons ago. But that, yeah, so if that is your aesthetic, I think it works. So the question is how to integrate those different elements in a way that makes sense for what you're trying to do. Again, it all goes back to what you want to do, what you're trying to do, and then whether you can do it successfully. That is to me what art is about. Like, what are you trying to do? Are you doing it?